Hey everyone, welcome back to Rip City Real Talk with Craig Moshkow and Anthony Blaylock. We're back and happy to be here after a small delay last week with the Blazers and some COVID stuff that happened with Memphis. But we're going to talk about what happened and what's going on and how we feel right now. So, how's everything going, Anth?
Good, man. It was a weird week. Just no basketball, no Blazers basketball for pretty much the entirety of the week. So
Mhm.
yeah, just interesting. It's going to be fun to talk about how these postponements are going to affect the league and us in general. And I don't know. It's going to be an interesting podcast. Not as much to cover as we normally have, but
Yeah.
definitely some cool topics to discuss.
Yeah, I think so. The first game, and we'll go shouts and pouts here in a minute, but the first game I want to talk about just real quick was Martin Luther King Day and the Spurs. We played them at noon. It was kind of a weird game. I caught three quarters of the game. What did you think of that Spurs game?
Oof, right at before shouts and pouts, eh?
Yep.
Okay, jump right into it. So first thing I noticed is one of the things that I called out when I was talking about the keys in the game, and I was concerned about points in the paint, and I was
Hmm.
concerned about not just necessarily in the paint specifically, but just right around it. They don't have a lot of 3-point shooters on that team. They have guys who can hit the three, sure,
Hmm.
but they're notoriously not going to be a great 3-point shooting team. They're two all-star players or star caliber players, LaMarcus Aldridge and DeRozan. Like they don't go outside and shoot the three. They're primarily paint just outside the paint scoring types of guys, and that's how
Yeah.
they get their 20 points a night.
Hmm.
So I was worried about that. I was worried about how we were going to defend that, especially with no Nurk. Um, and that was probably the first thing I noticed right off the bat is they went to Lamarcus over and over and over and
Hmm.
over, right just above the free throw line, top of the key, and he would just drain them.
Yeah.
And it's hard for a guy like Cantor because what is he supposed to do? He's trying to stay in. He's trying to play his position, and when you have a guy that brings him out like that, it's just tricky to guard. And so, eventually they fixed it and they kind of got out on him. We made it a competitive game, but then you watched DeRozan start going to the post. He started drawing Dame and getting fouls on Dame,
Right.
getting those put ups. And I don't know. That's the number one thing I noticed. And as the game went on, it felt like the more they were able to do that successfully, the more we got sucked into it. And then I
Sure.
think you saw at the end of the game when they really put us away, in that second half, it felt like it was just they started to hit those threes. They started to get Rudy Gay on the wing, and he started hitting threes, and
Yeah.
Johnson started getting some threes, and Patty Mills had five threes. It just felt like they finally started to expand outwards because of the
Hmm.
pressure they put on us down low.
Yep.
And I'm worried about teams doing that throughout the year against a guy like Cantor, who, again, we've talked about how he tries on defense, not the best defender.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we try, but it's it's been tough to watch at times because I would say our defense is really inconsistent. There will be times where it looks good and Cantor's been trying really hard. We have to give him credit. He's not known as a great pick and roll defender. I think the Stotts drop coverage helps him because he can back up to the basket and be more comfortable. But we've seen some weird lineups and some funky lineups, and we just don't have a great defensive center. Where you can tell we're lacking rim protection, and you can tell that teams are taking advantage of it. They're getting to the rim consistently against us. The bigger, longer, more athletic teams are able to drive on us and have no one that stops them. And it's just been tough. It's been tough so far defensively.
Right, especially when, as I'm sure people who watch the podcast know, that we preach how bad our perimeter defense is. When we have trouble stopping the three, the way we have trouble stopping the three, the one thing you got to do is you got to at least control the paint. Like you have to, even when Nurk is healthy. I mean, I know Cantor, like we talked about, he's not the best defender. He had
Mhm.
a game with 5 blocks, he had a game with 3 blocks recently. That's great and that's fine. Empty stats when you look at some of the points in the paint the teams are putting up on us, but
Yep.
that's where you at least have to make it difficult. And I feel like
Mhm.
the easier people score, just like in that Spurs game, and the more guys like Jones and Covington have to get sucked in to try to help out, get
Yes.
away from their guys, and that's where you start to see the scramble and teams will move kick out, move the ball around. We
Yeah.
have one guy trying to guard two guys all of a sudden, and it's just a recipe for a high 3-point percentage for the other team.
Yep.
Uh,
And the
yeah,
Spurs can take advantage of you in multiple ways. Like you were talking about, they can do elbow stuff where they back you down. They have a couple guys who can go slow, but they also have some pace. The thing that I noticed with the Spurs is they have some guys that can run, and I don't know. The Blazers just look like we don't have a good defensive scheme right now. We're trying to figure out what to do and trying to find the answers. And it doesn't help when you have these injuries, and I know that that sounds like an excuse, but when you have these injuries and you're trying to plug guys into different lineups, and now the second lineup, the second unit is a totally different unit than they were previously because now some of these guys are getting pulled into the starter. So I don't know yet what the answers are, but I think Shouts and Pouts will be able to call some of it out. So
Well, and that's kind of the I actually saved both my shout. Well, my one shout, my one pout that I had
mhm,
was about the Spurs game in particular, and
yeah,
I'll start with my shout.
okay,
So shout out to Rodney Hood. He got the start. That was surprising to us. We talked about our lineups and what we thought the run lineups would look like last week.
yeah,
Well, they started Hood over Trent. I think they just wanted to keep Trent in the defensive unit. I really thought that he would add 3-point shooting and defense in the starter unit, and they
mhm,
said no, we're going to put Hood out there. But hats off, he looked great.
mhm,
I'm going to start using a term more often called minutes effectiveness, and I feel like you have to be effective in the minutes you get. He's limited right now. Stotts is not playing him very much because of the Achilles. He's working him back, but he looked great. He looked great starting. He came out. He was posting up on guys. He would be able to move with the ball in his hand, turn, hit a shot. His three is still a little iffy, but that's
mhm,
that's going to be expected. He was never a great 3-point shooter in the first place. He can hit them, but it's more so what he can do when he's getting that ISO ball in his hands and able to turn and hit a jumper and fade away, and the kind of the stuff we saw him do a lot of last year. And it
yes,
was great to see him out there. So hats off.
yep,
He's one of the big reasons we stayed with the Spurs for as long as we did, and that's great. That
yeah,
brings me to my pout.
okay,
My pout was Enes Kanter in the Spurs game. Disappointed with the rebounding, particularly in the fourth quarter. I can't say his name. I'm sorry, Spurs fans. Jakob Poeltl.
Jakob Poeltl.
The kid who tries to say I like turtles. I don't know. Poeltl. I like Poeltl. Anyway, that guy got, I swear it was a stretch of maybe 3 to 4 offensive rebounds in a
Yeah,
row that he kicked back out to Rudy Gay, and they hit a couple threes on those possessions. We got within 7, 6, and ended up losing by 20. And I feel like that killed us. I mean, not getting those rebounds just killed us. And that is kind of Cantor's thing.
yeah,
Like, that's the thing, man. Like, you got to rebound the ball. Like, that's
mhm,
why you're here. I mean, that's one of the reasons that you were brought back was because of your ability to track a ball when it hits the rim and get the rebound and secure it for us.
mhm,
Second chance points just killed us there. It just killed us in the Spurs game, and that was a big pout. I really wanted to see more of him,
yeah,
especially losing to a guy like Jakob Podol. I can't say his name. It's a weird name, but
it is.
I just like that's a guy that you should be out rebounding and getting the ball back into Dame's hands to be able to go do
Yes.
Dame things. So
Yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, when you look at the Spurs, you don't think you're going to get out rebounded by them. I mean, you think they might outshoot you or they might defend you really well, which they did, but you shouldn't get beat on the boards by Jakob Poeltl. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Um, okay, so for Shouts and Pouts, it's funny because we never compare our notes, right? For
you know,
Shouts, I actually had Rodney Hood as well. And I think we were wrong on him last week. We said the natural plug would be Gary Trent, right? For that starting unit. And the reason being is, I guess we should have seen this. Hood is probably the more natural CJ replacement if you're looking at that. I mean, he's a guy who can create his own offense, not as nearly as efficiently as CJ, but he can create himself a shot. He can handle the ball a little better than Gary Trent. He's more of an offensive guy and he's more of a volume guy. So I mean, I'm not saying it's the right move, but he's the natural plug-in for the CJ injury. So I guess we just kind of misread that a little bit.
yeah, I don't know. To me, it's not the natural plug-in. I mean, aside from this depth chart perspective, the Blazers offense to me rolls through the 3-point ball. It rolls through the 3-point ball. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, CJ is not going to give you a ton on defense, obviously, and that's fine and dandy. But it felt like that was an opportunity to really put some extra defense out there and have the ability to hit wide open threes. Because DeRozan's not an amazing defender. LaMarcus isn't defending anything. That seemed to me like a chance where Dame should be able to kick in or drive in and kick out to a guy like Trent in the corner to start hitting some open threes. And as good as Hood did to start the game, I mean, we were pretty fortunate he did that.
Yeah.
I don't know. The guy didn't have very many minutes going into the game. I was
Mhm.
surprised that he started. He was just like another version of Carmelo. The ball got in his hand and he would just do an ISO thing and try to score. And again,
Yeah.
hats off. He played great. His minutes effectiveness, awesome. The minutes he got, he went out there and did exactly what they wanted him to do. Put the ball in the basket.
Mhm.
Cool. But then you saw in the second half, it didn't last. And mean, I don't know. I felt like Gary Trent should have had a chance to get hot, work with Dame in that starting unit to really see what we had. But I'm still happy with the way he played. He was not our, it's not his fault. He was asked to do that. It's not our job
No.
to see judge stats. But
Yeah.
I was surprised that they didn't start Trent.
Yeah. I think he was my shout, and then my pout is it's interior defense, and I know that we don't have the greatest center defenders. I understand that our bigs are not great defenders, but it looks like it's a lot of it looks like effort to me, and a lot of it looks like communication. There, a lot of times you'll see a guy get, like you were talking about before, the help defenders are trying to suck up too much, and then it leaves something open on the back end. The cutter is running free. There's lots of kickouts to wide open shooters. It just looks to me like communication. And granted, again, the units are not used to playing with each other. They're not cohesive. We understand that there's stuff going on, but we this week especially, we had 5 days to rest and practice and figure that out. So I'm hoping we see improvement in the upcoming weeks on that defense, because I understand that we're a bad perimeter defense team. That's part of the ball game. And it's a 3-point league, but we should not be getting driven on consistently and out rebounded consistently inside.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've talked about it before. I feel like the screen game just dominates us more than it should.
Yes.
I feel like when you have a guy like Dame and you have a guy like CJ, they're not great defenders as it is. They're
Mhm.
getting beat on the screen. Even Jones and Covington, we've talked, are starting to get hurt a little bit on these screens.
Yes.
And what it does is it allows these guys to get in faster than I think a guy like Nurk or Cantor are expecting them to get in.
Yes.
And then you see that scramble to try to call for help, and you see guys try to run in to help. Like we said, you're getting sucked in. And that's where those kickouts to wide open threes start to occur. And
Mhm.
it's concerning for sure. You'd hope that, I guess they would trust Nurkic or Cantor to be able to take a guy one on one when he goes in there, but it's just not been the case.
Yep.
They're getting a couple blocks here and there, but they also foul a lot. And I don't know if it's a trust thing, if it's a chemistry thing, or what it is, but it just seems like they draw in too far. Like too many
Yes.
guys are coming to help. They don't know who's supposed to go help.
It's got to be.
We should be fortunate where we are as far as
Yes.
standing, and as far as the rest of the West just being absolute
Right.
crap outside the two LA teams and a pretty good Utah team. That again, we talk about chemistry. Outside of Denver, I feel like Utah probably has the best chemistry in the league.
Yep.
And so I'm not surprised to see them starting the year off hot. But yeah, I mean,
It's got to improve. If we want to be taken seriously, we got to get better at it.
it's got to be fixed. I mean, I've been impressed with Covington one-on-one on some of these guys down low. He's won those battles more often than not.
Yeah.
It's the drives, and I know we played a lot of teams with pace. We talked about the
Mhm.
pace being an issue. They get in off a rebound and they get in so quick. It's hard for you to really get set up.
Yes.
But points in the paint are going to be a thing that we're really going to watch all year. I mean, you just have to slow that down and stop it. Like, I mean, you have to force them to try to play their game a little further out more often than not, or at least make it tough. Make a guy not want to drive into the lane because he's worried about getting a shot blocked or getting contact. They like to draw fouls, sure, but guys don't like to get hit all day either. So
Yeah.
I agree, man. It's been an
Yeah.
issue.
It's been tough. So then it's a really weird week, right? We have this weird Spurs loss, and people, the Blazer fans, us included, we have this tendency to where if we lose, we're bad, and if we win, we're great. I don't know why Blazer fans just tend to overreact. Maybe that's the NBA in general. But we lose to the Spurs, and then Memphis has either a guy test positive or they have some COVID stuff going on.
Valanciunas tested positive, and then there was
Valanciunas, yeah.
things.
So he tests positive. So then we had 2 and 3 nights with them that got canceled or postponed for the second half of the season. And we'll tackle that in a little bit and what that's going to look like. But we got a really much needed 5 days of rest. And then we go in to play the Knicks. Now, a casual fan may say the Knicks are an East team and they're terrible, but they've actually been really good this year.
They're the
Do you
number
want to talk?
one defensive team in the league.
Yeah, a number 1 defense in the league. I didn't realize that going into that game. And they've been a really potent offensive team too. They have 2 guys that score above 18 points per game. They have a lot of shooters that they didn't have last year that are hitting their shots a lot more consistently. And they have a couple guys who can really dish it out on offense. And Peyton and Julius Randle can both run an offense. So I think the Knicks game I was more nervous about it than I would have been in years past, right?
I agree. It's funny. I don't know if people follow the up and up with the Disney World, but we were watching the Disney movie, the Soul movie that
Yes.
came out, Pixar one, and there's a little clip in there where it was like the people were making fun of people when they're really in the zone, and one of it was like a New York Knicks guy going up to make a dunk, and like, oh, I've been messing with those guys for years because they were so
Yeah.
bad. So
It was
that's kind
terrible.
of funny because I said that to Nicole, and she's like, "We just played the Knicks." And she's like, "Isn't the team that's really bad?" I was like, "See." So
It's a
yeah, you just
misnomer
they
this year.
haven't been good since Melo left, and they really even for quite a while he was there. I mean, he got his, but they weren't a consistent threat in the East. So yeah, you kind of felt like this is one of those games that this should be a piece of cake, and then you start looking at some of the numbers. You're like, okay, well, Julius Randle's going to be an All Star this year, well deserved.
Mhm.
RJ Barrett, second overall pick last year, he's scoring above 20 this year, or at least the
Yeah.
last couple games coming in, he's been
Yeah.
hot.
He's been really
And they
good.
just have a bunch of guys that can do it. A bunch of centers, a bunch of bigs that can control the game down low. Mitchell Robinson's a great shot blocker.
Yes.
Um,
Nerlens Noel.
Tough game, but
Yep.
the thing that scared me the most was the 3-point because we are a 3-point shooting team. We
Mhm.
attempt the most 3-pointers in the entire league per game. They are the number one 3-point field goal percentage wise, 3-point
Mm.
defending team. It worried me, man. It worried me as it's a recipe for disaster when you
Yeah.
talk about a team that's supposedly going to stop you from three, and you come in and all of a sudden they just don't stop you. We got up to a 25-point lead, and yay, that was great. And then
Yeah.
and then it turned around.
Yeah. So, okay. So, what got us to the 25-point lead, and what keeps happening in these third quarters or second halves or whatever's happening that's blowing these leads? I mean, what's going on with this, man?
I think the start, the really what built us up was we scored more points in the paint. And when I say that, I feel like Derek Jones Jr. had probably his best game as a Blazer. In fact, he did career wise or as points with the team. He had the
Yes.
most points all season. So
Yeah.
great. And that's because they went to him early. He was getting putbacks. There was a little bit more cutting action. They passed to him down low, and he was able to go up and do his thing. And that was it. Just controlled the pace. It took the pace away from them. It got them out of setting up their defense because we were able to get down and cut.
Yeah.
And then we hit threes to start the game. Obviously, that was a big deal. Our bench unit came in. The bench looked amazing. I mean, Anthony came out and got 16 points.
Yes.
It was fun. We were hitting all these shots, and that was
Yeah.
great. We built that big lead. I think the problem was we just kept shooting threes. We've talked about this team this year and the amount of threes we try to take. The only other offense outside of the 3-point shot at this point seems to be Carmelo Anthony and ISO ball, or
Or Dame
some
heroics if he's hot.
driving in the middle. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
at least right now. I mean, when Nurk's in there, sure, you get a little pick and roll action. CJ will drive a little bit here and there, but it feels like we've really evolved at this team to be specifically a 3-point shooting team.
Yep.
And when you play against a team that's that good at defending the three, eventually it catches up to you. And we
Yes.
started missing shots, and then they just rolled right back down the floor and got points in the paint. Went to Randall a bunch, and they drew a lot of free throws, and they started to catch up. They chipped away slowly because the pace favored them when you were missing those threes.
Yes. Yeah, and that's happened a bunch of times this year where we shoot well in the first half, and then in the second half we don't shoot as well. And like you said, pace leads to uh, us blowing leads. I mean, other teams run on us, and they start getting a rhythm and a development. And it's nice that we're winning these games close, right? It's a testament to this team that Mello and Dame and when he was healthy, CJ were clutching up and winning us games. But it's nerve wracking as a fan to watch us blow a 25-point lead like it's nothing in a third quarter.
And maybe that's just been the entire year. I
Yeah.
haven't watched enough of the other teams, but we've done it too. We've come back from 16 points multiple times. It's kind of the magic number for us, and we've been in these close games and been able to fight back in the second half, primarily because of our 3-point shooting.
Yep.
I mean, guys come out and get hot in the fourth quarter or late third quarter, and it's like, boom, we just took 16 points down to 6 or 7, and then you fight and you eventually chip away and get the win. So
Yep.
I don't know. It just seems like it's been a weird league, especially with us as a
Yeah.
team. I thought when Jones came in, we talked about the athleticism. I thought there'd be more cutting to the rim. I thought there'd be more slashing,
Yes.
and it really
It's not
hasn't
there.
been. I mean, he's gotten some putbacks, but it hasn't been. It's been fast breaks for him, or
Yeah.
him and Covington have been relied upon for the 3-point ball a little bit too much, in my opinion. And I think that resulted, number one, in almost blowing that Knicks lead, and
Yeah.
also just it hurts us when we're trying to get back in games as well. I mean, you look at a couple times against the Spurs, you get within that 6, 7 point window, and things are looking up, and then it's just three after three after three. And if you miss two, three of those in the row, and they go down and get 4, 6 points, now you're back to 13, and it's just you're not coming back from that. So
Yeah, I mean, I put down that DJ's played well as well. I mean, the fast break stuff is great. I love to see him, he gets a steal or whatever and then takes it down and dunks it. That's awesome. We got some really good stuff from and from Giles. I thought Giles played about as well as you would expect him to play. He's still really young, he's still learning, and he doesn't know our system very well. So if you're getting stuff from them, I think one thing that doesn't help us at all is in the second half, I've seen a lot of Melo, and it's a lot of the bad Melo long possessions, him dribbling it out, taking the air out of the ball. I think we all agree that Melo's at his best when he's spot up shooting, but he's also helped us win 3 or 4 games this year, and he's had the last clutch shot, so it's really hard for shots to go away from him, and I don't think anybody's gonna tell him not to shoot when he's your best offensive option a lot of the time, so.
yeah, that's it, right? Like until Hood just really rounds into form, and until we get anything out of Anthony. And again, hats off to him
Yeah,
for having a great game against the Knicks. I mean, we needed him to step up because of the injuries, and he looked good. But he looked
fantastic.
good because he was hitting his shots. And the problem is, it's just when he's not hitting his shots, he doesn't give you much of anything else. He doesn't pass. He can't really play make. He's not an assist guy, and he has no defense. I mean, he's still learning. He's gotten better. Granted, he's athletic, so that helps him make up for some mistakes. But again, he's taken more threes than he typically does, just for his shot attempts. His percentage is up from 3 point attempts, and that's just been the way we played the offense all year. It
Yeah.
worked out, and we ended up getting up by so much against the Knicks that they couldn't come back even when we started to struggle. That's great, but at the same time, it killed us against other teams, and we've seen it a couple times this year. And maybe that's just it, man. We're just gonna have to keep riding and dying by the 3 point shot. It's been the story this year.
Yep.
It's
Yeah,
kind of like I almost don't mind Melo taking those twos. I know you don't like it as much, and I've had my issues
he
with
has
it,
to.
but it's something other than a three. If he feels he's getting a good ISO shot against a guy that's smaller than him, you know what? At this point, if anything, it makes the rebound a little bit harder for them to get and lets you get back on defense a little bit more because it slows everything down. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's been weird.
If there's a person, I mean, if there's a different guy that can get you 15 every night, then show him to us. Like we're down to watch him. But the problem is, Hood has it some nights and then doesn't. Ant has it some nights and doesn't. And when Covington and Derek Jones aren't hitting those open threes, which they have not hit consistently this year, it is going to be difficult.
Same with
And
Trent.
yeah,
Trent's a 3 point guy. When he's not on, when he gets the 8 points or eight
yeah,
3 pointers, like, oh my God, Gary Trent.
I agree.
The Lakers, that was amazing. And then he gives you those games where he's 2 of 6, 2 of 7, and he
Yeah,
doesn't do anything else. And yeah, it's
yeah.
just hard.
So I think at this point it's just patience and it's just letting. I mean, I like seeing the Giles minutes and I like seeing Anthony out there because the potential is sky high. Their athleticism is ridiculous. I mean, some of the plays Giles has been making, you don't see stuff like that very often. But you have to remember they're really young. Uh, Most of these guys like Nas Little, he was a one and done at North Carolina, so he's 20 years old and he's been in the league for 2 years. It's just one of those things where we have to be patient because this team is younger and more athletic, but they're so much more unrefined than they've been in years past. So
Agreed. And it's tricky because it's hard to refine them because of the positions that we've had filled up by certain guys that they're just not getting the minutes
yeah,
from the bench. But I will tell you this: I've never seen a man rebound a ball like Giles. He goes up with one hand and he rips that ball out
yes,
of the sky and
yes.
comes down with it in the same motion that I expect Zeus throws lightning bolts with. I mean, it's amazing the guy's athleticism.
Let's name
Uh,
him Thor. Let's name him Thor Giles.
just coming out here throwing lightning bolts when he rebounds the ball. But
He is. Yeah,
again,
he's a monster.
right. I mean, we didn't get to see much of Little at the end of the season last year. He had the injury. This year he had the bout with COVID. He's had some other things going on, so he's slowly getting back into the lineup. But they're giving him minutes, and they have to with the injuries. And it's been good to see. I felt that again minutes effectiveness. I know it's a weird term I keep throwing out, but Giles has been hit or miss with me when he's been out there, but I'm starting to see these guys get more comfortable and they're going to get the minutes. And we've seen how many times in the past with this Blazers team throughout the last couple of years with all the injuries that we've seemed to have had with CJ and Nurk a couple of years ago, et cetera, that the young guys get all this playing time and then come late season, even if they don't really produce much in the playoffs because Stotts is pretty tight with his rotations, but getting to the playoffs,
Yeah,
you start to see a lot of these guys get big minutes and they look really good at the end of the year for what they're asked to do.
I agree.
Well, I mean, it's good to get it out of the way now. It's good
Yep.
to have them when we're still fourth in the West and we're still competing and teams are still struggling to get the young guys involved and continue to
Yeah.
get some kind of a resemblance of playing time.
Well, and the other thing is that we talk about the injuries, but as long as Dame is healthy, this team's going to compete night in and night out. I mean, he went absolutely ballistic in that New York game. He was on a streak where he broke his own record for free throws made. I think it was 66 at the end of the New York game. I mean, the guy's just he's incredible, and Cantor's working his butt off, and Mello. We may not love it, and he may not be our favorite player, but he's given us a consistent score.
We've seen a lot of plays where he got quick hands. He's swiping at balls. When he gets the body up on somebody, he looks a lot better. His problem is he just can't close out in the shooters.
And they're driving right by him.
Yeah, they're driving
right
by
by
him. Or they're getting open threes because he's worried about them driving right by him, so he stays back a little bit too far. And
that too.
I think Danny Moran called it out. Like there's a couple times where the offense will just pick on him. They'll go right where he is on the court and just make some offense happen. But we knew he wasn't going to be a good defender. He's here to give you that 12 to 15 points, and he's been doing that. He's drawing fouls. He's still a leader. He's a vet. He is what he is.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish we would see more from a guy like Anthony or Hood to really kind of counter out the slow Mello play on the bench unit. But that'll come with time. I mean, Anthony's about to get a bunch of minutes going forward. Hood's looked good as a starter against the Spurs. He didn't, play very much against the Knicks, and that's fine. Again, they're limiting his minutes as he comes back from injury, but late in the year, we've seen flashes of what he can give us. I like the idea of where this team can go if we can just tread water until we get our guys back.
Agreed. So this week is kind of weird. So we play a back-to-back. So we're recapping on Monday. We play OKC tonight. Yep. And then we're going to have Rockets on Thursday in Houston, which is kind of a strange game because Houston's a little discombobulated right now. And then we play the Bulls in Chicago on Saturday, and we've already seen that the Bulls have talent more than you would think, right? So
yeah, I mean, I don't get too much into talking about the predictions and things. OKC is a young team. Those teams are always weird when it comes to playing them. A lot of just lanky guys. And I think one of the things I read about them is they have a lot of second round guys, like guys that were drafted late. And, those guys hustle. They play big minutes and they play hard and aggressive. Houston, it's going to be a whole different Houston game. We'll talk about some of those things. I mean, if they have Wall play, they didn't have Cousins play last time we played them. They have no Harden now. It's like the whole new Houston. I mean, this is just a completely different team, the way that they're going to operate. I mean, I don't know what to expect there. I don't know if Oladipo's playing for him yet. I think he might be, but he was kind of banged up. So there's a lot of little changes that when we get to that game, we'll talk more of when I do the pregame stuff. But yeah, people are going to be like, whoa, this is like the same Houston team we played before at all. Yeah. And then obviously Chicago already did what Chicago did to us once this year. So we're familiar with them. We know what to expect there, and going to be a little rougher without some of the starters. I think they've been playing good ball in the East right now. So yeah, this is where we're coming out of our easy point of our schedule. I feel like we've done good. I mean, every single week that we've done a podcast, we've been at least 500. We went on one this week. I think we can take Houston, no problem. I just don't think they have enough offensive firepower, even though they have really good bigs. Mm-hmm. Chicago, I wouldn't expect good things if you're a Portland fan. I hope that we play good, but they've already beat us once, and that was when we were essentially at full strength as far as the roster goes, and they haven't had the kinds of injuries we've had. Yeah. And OKC, I don't know what to make of OKC. I don't like teams like that. It's hard to tell you don't know who they're going to go through offensively. I mean, obviously Shai Gilgeous is going to be their main offensive threat, but they have so many other random little guys that are just capable of doing things scoring wise, like driving to the rim or hitting threes.
Yes.
It's hard to game plan around that.
They're tough.
I will say this. I will say one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring up was I like that we had the postponement when we did. I really feel like coming right off the injuries, if you're going to miss a couple games in a row, it's good to miss them while you have guys injured, because hopefully when you play those games, you get those guys back for those games, which is important. And B, it gives you a lot of time to practice as a unit, as a starting unit, as a bench unit. It gives
Mhm.
you a lot of time to kind of take a couple, like almost a week to really be like, okay, we're going to get a lot of practice in getting ready to, instead of just throwing them out into a game with limited practice and trying to hope everything works out together. I think we saw that with the Knicks. There was a little bit more cohesiveness and the bench
Definitely.
play. We'll see with OKC, but that was big. I don't think fans can really understand what kind of, not just from the rest standpoint, but just for the
Mhm.
cohesiveness of the guys that are having to step up and play bigger roles now.
Sure. I thought that early in that game, the first half, the defense looked retooled. It looked like Stotts had some monkey wrenches to throw in there a little bit, and that's something that we haven't typically been really good at, which is adjusting to other teams. I would like to see more adjustments in the second half. We switching up from man to zone and different things defensively, but offensively, it just comes down to who hits their shots. And for the first half, we were hitting our shots. Second half, New York hit a lot of theirs. Luckily, we kind of held on. Going forward, I think a lot of fans and a lot of people, well, especially when Nurk got hurt, they were saying, Blazers need to make a move. I honestly think that right now that we're kind of content with just hanging out and letting the cards fall where they may. I haven't heard anything, and there's no big reports right now. I mean, obviously we can speculate, but what do you think is going to happen?
I don't think anything happens with the trade deadline. I think we make a move. I don't think it's a big move. If anything, it's just to kind of add a piece where through the first half of the season we've noticed we might be missing something or could improve here and there.
Yep.
But it's really going to, and that's what Neil does. He's going to find somebody who's potentially available
Yes.
with the right price, and he'll make his calls. But I'm sure they do something. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like I could see Hood going. I really think Trent's gone
Mm,
personally.
I do too.
This is going to be a stretch where Anthony's going to get to showcase his skills. I mean, as an asset for a trade, he's about to play big minutes with CJ out for 8 weeks or whatever it ends up being. I mean, Hood and Trent are going to be alternating between starting or not,
Yeah.
and this is where Anthony's going to get to show if he has the kind of game that we expect to see from an improvement standpoint. Because he's not going to come out and light it up for 20 a night as a bench player, sure, but if he can look good, be effective, look decisive, and do some kind of defense, this might be a point where you think about trading him. Who knows?
Yes.
I mean, he's still young, and Stotts might want to keep him, and Neil might want to keep him just for the long term as a
Mm,
guy that can come in and replace CJ and Dame when they're resting. So hard
yeah.
to say. I do think they'll make a move. I don't think it'll be anything big. Cap relief, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, Depends on where we are in the West as well. I think we're fourth right now, and the rest of the West looks terrible. So I just don't think if you start falling behind that 7-8 seed and things aren't looking great, maybe you try to retool for next year. You figure something out. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything
And
yet.
we have expiring contracts for the first time in a long time. I mean, like, for example, they were on rookie deals, but Gary Trent Jr. is on an expiring deal. When you're looking at Zach Collins, I know that they're injured, but sometimes teams will take those guys and want the rights, and they'll dump a salary to you for those guys. So,
From
um,
football, or just a rotational guy. I mean, that's how we got
yeah.
Covington.
Yep. And so the biggest thing for me too, and one thing that I'm going to look out for over the next before the trade deadline, um, wing of the future. And what I mean by that is Derek Jones and Nas Little and some of these guys. Can they step up? Can they take a leap? Can they make growth where they can be a consistent starter in your lineup? Because we really need wings as bad as we can, and we need them as cheap as we can get them, with our guards being as expensive as they are. So I think something to look for is watch Nasir Little, watch Derek Jones, see how they gel with the units that they're playing, and see if one of them is a long-term answer. I don't obviously Covington's not a long-term answer because he's already older than Damon CJ, but it's just one of those things that I'm curious about as the year goes on and they get minutes.
For sure. And we're about to see a lot of those minutes. 'Cause the last thing I want to touch on before we let this go is it's kind of your thoughts on how the Covington injury. It's not
Yeah,
going to be long term. It's a concussion. He'll be back soon, but we're
yeah.
about to see probably in this upcoming OKC game some interesting lineups and some guys getting more minutes. And I mean, are you excited to see anybody get more time? Are you, a little? Are you excited to see what they do to replace Covington in the starting unit? What
Yeah,
do you think is going to happen with that?
it's a good question. So I think we started off with Rodney Hood, and honestly, I'm kind of sour on Rodney Hood. I don't know. He just reminds me of a smaller Mello. It looks like the defense isn't there, and it looks like to me he's just a shooting guard, sixth man type thing. I'm really interested in Nasir Little, and I'm really interested in Harry Giles. I love Harry Giles. What you just said earlier about the rebounding, I've never seen anyone look as explosive as he does at times. So I would say them. The other one that I'm watching a lot of, uh, I don't know what we're gonna do with Derek Jones Jr., but it looks like to me he at times looks a little out on offense, and I want to see Stotts and company get him integrated into the offense more. He's amazing on the fast break, but we're not a fast break team. So at times it feels like Derek Jones Jr. is a Ferrari that we're just not getting out of the garage. And so what can we do to get him going? In the Knicks game, he started off great and we got him going, but I want to see that every single game, and it's just not happening.
And I just don't think he's an aggressive guy. I mean, all the mannerisms I'm seeing, he's quiet. You know, I see him. People make jokes with him, or the team will say something to him, and he kind of smiles, but he doesn't. I don't see the fire in
Right.
him. I
I
don't know.
agree.
I mean, if you get in the bigger games, I feel like you start to see him get a little more into it, especially when he starts getting beat up and he's making hustle plays.
Yeah.
I want to see him get mad a little bit more. I want to see him, say something to a ref, like say something to another guy on the opposite team. Like, you're a defensive guy. You're supposed
Yeah.
to be an enforcer. You want to take on the best players. You
Yeah.
have to have that attitude. You have to have a shutdown cornerback in the NFL's attitude going into against the best wide receiver. And I don't see that with him.
Mhm.
Mo was like that for a while, and then we saw more out of Mo as he got comfortable with his role throughout the couple years he was here. He got a little more fiery near the end, but
Yeah.
they remind me of the same type of player. I mean, Mo wasn't as explosive, but he was definitely a hustle guy, and
Yes.
3-point shooting was about the same. And
That's a good comparison.
you just want to see them. You want to see
More.
them just be a little bit more, a little more
Yeah.
energy for a lanky, athletic guy. When he goes up to make those dunks and you come down with it, don't just turn around and walk away. Look at them. Let them know, like, yeah, man, I just dunked on you. Like,
Yeah.
that's the motivation stuff that I want to see out of him. And I think until he gets that, he kind of sucks himself out of games just because
Yeah.
of the low energy. And if he gets a little bit more fiery and he starts demanding the ball a bit more and he gets on a little bit of a hot streak, Dame will start to get him the ball more than they do. But
Yeah.
to me, is one of the things I noticed with him. And he's still playing great, but he just no energy, no,
Yeah.
not even energy because
So
he's making hustle plays, but more just no fire in his emotions.
yeah, something I think that they could do is I think Giles passing more like a la Nurkic when you look at Nurkic and him being a hub on offense. I think if Giles is more kind of passing and facilitating with Derek Jones, if you're looking at Rodney Hood and he's passing better, I think there's ways that they can unlock DJ. I just want to see it. But I agree with you. I think that the Mo comparison is really spot on because when Mo was hot, he would drop 20, but it was so few and far between, right? And getting him going is kind of hard because he's just not a naturally aggressive guy. And Derek Jones seems to be in that same mold. Now he is only 23 years old, so maybe he
Right.
just needs more time. Maybe he just needs more time with the starters. Maybe they just need, and that's something that we can't preach enough is patience. And then the other thing is, could you imagine if we were had a full crowd sometimes? I think
No.
energy guys feed off of fans, and there's no fans right now. So,
Yeah, for sure. But that's
but
what I got for you, man. That's all I got. We
yeah,
kind of went a little bit longer than normal, everyone. We
it's
appreciate
okay.
that. You follow us. We just wanted to make sure we had the Knicks game in there because
Yeah.
we didn't know what we were going to talk about with the Spurs loss. We want to come at you guys with the 0-1 team. No
Yeah.
way.
Thank
So,
God we got the dub. And the thing of it is, like we say every week, 500 or better, 500 or better with this team. Just keep limping through. Dame will keep us in games. Melo will hit a clutch shot, and so far we're good, man.
yep, fourth in the
Yeah.
West. Schedule's not too bad going forward. Just got to keep grinding.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we're gonna do a recap earlier next week and hit these games. Got some pretty interesting ones as far as we're concerned. So we'll hit it early next week and look for all the socials follow so we can get that 100 likes and 100 what was it 100 likes and what
100 likes and follows on the
100
Facebook page.
follows.
Two
Okay.
separate things. We're at 38 followers and 33 likes right now. So we appreciate
Wow.
the support we have. Keep sharing. Get the word out there, and then
Yep.
follow us on Twitter. We're kind of becoming a big deal. We have, I think, 4 or 5 followers,
We have a
and
lot of
only
followers now.
one of them is a friend. So the other 4 are pretty popular Blazers people. I don't know any of them, but I would imagine that in that ring, they're pretty cool people.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real though, everybody, we appreciate the support that you do give us. Eventually, we'll keep
Yep.
doing these. We're gonna keep doing them whether you watch or not. So we're gonna flood your feed with them. Get over it. But we do appreciate it seriously.
Yep. All right. Well, we're out. Go Blazers.
Go Blazers.